Okay, well, welcome everybody to tonight's Zoom call with our team Journey to Jewels. We are in our second night, our second series of reviewing the book Be, Do, and Have More by Presley Swaggerty. And we covered a couple chapters last week. And so tonight we're going to cover about 3 chapters, and we're going to break it down between 3 different words, 3 different things: belief, words, and dreams. And that kind of summarizes, there's a lot of information contained in these 3 chapters, but I kind of just tried my best to break it down as simply as possible. But let's get right into it, and we'll just kind of go through all these slides, and then I'll stop the video. And if anybody that's on the call has questions, we can go from there. So basically, he starts off saying, and we've all heard this before, that in order to be successful in life, but definitely also in Plexus, you have to have belief in yourself. You have to believe that you have what it takes to do this business and to do it well and to be successful at it. And I hope that this is one reason they put out all of the diamond documentaries, and not even just diamonds, but the jewels that we see, the senior rubies, whatever. When you start going to Plexus sponsored corporate events, you will see that the jewels are comprised of so many different types of people, so many different backgrounds, age ranges, personality traits. There is no one size fits all to be successful. You have to believe that you have what it takes and that you are good enough, to do this. And so I included this quote here that I just love. It's whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. So if you believe it in your mind, it's like your brain and your body go to work to make that a reality and to kind of make that happen. He told a story. He shared a story about belief. He talked about Oprah, and when Oprah first started out, before she, had her TV show, she was a news correspondent, which most of us know that, but I didn't know this. He said that in her very first job, the first time that she met with her boss, her boss was like, okay, Oprah, that name is like way too weird. It's way too odd. People will not remember that name. You're never going to make it on TV with a name like Oprah. So he suggested to her, we need to change your name, like your TV name, to Susie. And at first she agreed. I mean, she was young at the time. She wanted approval. She wanted to be successful. So she agreed. But with less than 24 hours went by, and she went back to her boss and was like, I cannot change my name. Like, Oprah is who I am. It's who I've always been, and it's who I'll always be. And so even from that early age, starting out, Oprah had amazing amounts of belief in herself. And so that whole idea that believing in yourself, it is a choice. It's a choice that you make every day, sometimes every hour, maybe sometimes, but it's an attitude that you can develop over time. And yes, it does help if you come from a place where you were raised, in an environment where belief was like spoken into you, or where you were like reinforced a lot or praised a lot, or it was a positive environment, positive, supportive parents. But that's not always the way that it goes. That's not what all of us necessarily get. So typically what ends up happening is our parents pass on to us the same limiting beliefs that they got from their own childhood. So just remember, the past is the past. And really from this point forward, if you've never kind of come to that realization before, that you are in charge now of your own self-esteem. You have to take charge of that, and you have to choose to believe that you can do whatever it is that you set your mind to. And then he shared this. Before I go to the heart of the lion, he talked about, and this is something you can kind of look up. There's a thing called expectancy theory. And it basically just kind of, that thing I just said, it explains that why we do spend our lives being conditioned, and our brain actually learns what to expect next based on our beliefs, based on the things that we tell our brain. And we've talked a lot about the power of our belief and mindset, and there's a lot of stuff out there, a lot of training that you can get on our team page and then on YouTube too. But there's actually a theory out there called expectancy theory. So because our brain expects something to happen a certain way, often that is exactly what we achieve. So what's inside of you, those thoughts that are going on inside of you, your belief, that's really one of the biggest factors to your success. Other people can believe in you. They can tell you all day long, I know that you can do this business. You're amazing. You're a great leader. But that doesn't really matter. I mean, their belief, that's great. But until you believe it, that will be the thing that spurns you on to action once you actually believe it for yourself. So he put this little story in this chapter called The Heart of a Lion. And I'll just kind of paraphrase a little bit, but basically this is the story. A mouse was in constant distress because of its fear of the cat. So a magician took pity on the mouse and it turned the mouse into a cat. But then the cat now became afraid of the dog. So the magician turned it into a dog. Well, then it began to fear the panther. So the magician turned it into a panther. And after that, it was full of fear of the hunter. And at this point, the magician just completely gave up and turned it back into a mouse and said to the mouse, nothing I do for you is ever going to be of any help because you have the heart of a mouse. So when we don't believe in ourselves, it's like we have the heart of a mouse. We will always be fearing that next biggest thing. And, being turned into that next biggest thing, it doesn't address that fear we have inside of our own heart and inside of our own mind, that lack of belief. So if we don't believe in ourselves, this is an important point, especially when you think about Plexus. If we don't have that belief, why would anybody else believe in us? Why would anybody else want to follow us, want to join us, want us to lead them? People tend to naturally be pulled to other people of great self-faith who believe in themselves, because it gives them a sense of confidence that this person knows where they're going. I want to be on board with that person. So think about that. You hear a lot too that people say belief has a sound, which is one reason why we always say to get face-to-face with people when you're sharing about Plexus, or on the phone at least, if you can't do face-to-face, because belief has a sound. But self-doubt also has a sound. So people can hear, if you're doubting yourself, if you don't believe, it affects the way that you say your words, and it affects the way that people perceive you. They can perceive that self-doubt too. So ask yourself, where do you set your personal bar, okay, when it comes to what you believe that you're going to get out of your life, okay, or what you will accept. So he made the point that he has learned in life that life will give you whatever it is that you accept from life. So if you are going to accept failure, not expect it, but accept it, like I accept failure in my life, then you will fail. If you accept being average at something, then you will be average. So where is your bar? I mean, are you going to say, I accept nothing less than being my best, or than succeeding at this, reaching this goal? That's what I will accept. I will accept nothing else. And of course, we've heard this quote, and it's one of my favorites: whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So when you believe, like really, really believe that something can be done, your mind goes to work to find a way to make that happen, to make it a reality. It becomes creative, and it becomes really good at problem solving, and it sees obstacles not as a complete setback, but as something to overcome and a challenge. So when you think you can and you believe it, your mind goes to work for you, and it helps you find a way to make that a reality. So I know though that, things, especially in our business, come our way. This doesn't mean that struggles won't come and obstacles won't come, and we won't lose momentum, and we won't, set a goal that we don't reach. But this is why belief is so important. That's the very reason why. Because when you start to lose confidence, like when those bumpy roads start to happen and you start to have the detours or the setbacks, and you allow that to affect your belief, to lessen your confidence, you are going to set yourself back so much farther then it's going to be that much harder for you to get back on track. And honestly, that's why a lot of people take the exit ramp in this kind of a business, because they don't have that belief. They're not addressing that belief every single day, checking in with themselves and checking in with their belief. Because you can get it back, and we've seen that whenever momentum slips or we lose customers, we lose team members. The great thing about Plexus, especially the way that our compensation plan is set up, you can rebuild with this business. It is so possible. There are jewels that have done it. There are jewels who have built themselves up and fallen and built up again. I mean, you can rebuild if you want it, if you believe that you can do it. A lot of people, he believes, just don't really expect to succeed. And so I think that that's a good just self-reflection to ask is, do I expect to succeed at this? Like, do I really believe that I can do it? Because you do have the power, you do have what it takes. Like I said earlier, there is no cookie cutter ruby or senior gold or emerald or sapphire or diamond. They come from all different, walks of life and backgrounds and everything. So no one is going to just walk up to you and hand you this opportunity and say, okay, here you go. Here's your success. But the good news is, you don't need anybody to do that, because you have the power and the ability to make this happen for yourself. So all you need to do is really just have that belief and the determination and just demand that you are going to do it no matter what. And this, again, I kind of mentioned this earlier, but what others believe about you matters very little compared to what you believe about yourself. So I think the main thing in this chapter was just that our belief can really become, it does become a self-fulfilling prophecy. So you must believe that you can be more so that you can do more and have more, like his book suggests. So that's kind of our belief section. And then let's move on to words. And what he's talking about mostly in when he talks about this section is communication. So not necessarily the words that we speak to ourselves, although that is important, our self-talk, but he's talking about being a successful person. One thing that they all have in common is that they have developed their skills of communication. So, communication is a skill, just like anything else. Not everybody is born being an amazing communicator. Some are, some aren't. But it is a skill that you can develop and hone and practice and get better at. So, am I frozen? Can somebody give me a thumbs up if you can see me or hear me? Okay, I'm good. Okay. Oops. There we go. Okay. So communication, just like anything else, is a skill that you can develop. So just kind of like riding a bike, you can get better at this. And it's a skill that we should all be working towards. We should really see the importance, not just in our business, but in life, communicating clearly with all the people in your life, your bosses, your coworkers, your employees, your friends, your children, your spouse, your colleagues, everyone. Communication is so key. And it's such a critical part to your success, really. I love this quote by Les Brown. He says, when you open your mouth, you tell the world who you are. That is so good. I wrote that on a note card and put that up in my bathroom. Successful people are conscious about the thoughts they think and the words they speak. Both of these, they tell the world about themselves, the words that we speak. So it's really important, he says, that you learn to take control of your words so that your words don't take control of you. All right. So to be more successful, people know that they need to speak words that are going to build self-esteem in others, speak words that are going to build dreams in others, and then speak words that build relationships. And so usually these are words of appreciation, encouragement, acceptance, love, vision, possibility. I mean, pay attention to the words coming out of your mouth. Are you speaking those things, those life-giving things? Or do you tend to be more of a negative Nelly, a person who's complaining a lot or focusing on the negative? And Are you, complimentary of people? Do you encourage people, or do you bring people down? I mean, just kind of reflect on that a little bit. Because everything that you say to someone else produces an effect inside of that person. So just know that you are constantly creating something. It's either a positive or a negative with your words. You're either adding value to someone or you're taking it away, one or the other. So before you speak, he suggests asking yourself, is what I'm about to say going to advance the cause of my vision and help me reach my goals? If it is, okay, then, say it. Is what I'm about to say, is it going to inspire or motivate or create momentum? Is it going to build self-esteem and self-confidence in others? Just kind of filter your words and start to ask yourself those things before you communicate with other people. And I would add this to, when you open your mouth, you tell the world who you are. I mean, this is true on Facebook too. And we talk a lot about that, posting smart. And I don't mean just with when you post about Plexus, but what you're sharing on Facebook, you're telling your Facebook audience who you are, what you value, what kind of life you live, what kind of attitude you have. So when you open your mouth to speak or to post, just keep that in mind. You're telling the world who you are and what you're about. So he gave 7 communication tips. And some of these, I'll be honest, they're pretty common sense, I think, but I guess they're worth just kind of having a review of. So the first tip, he says, is to smile. And, he says you can make most people very friendly towards you just by smiling. And so before you even speak a word, just try breaking the silence with a smile, before you even say hello. And that it's really one of the easiest ways to win people over to your side. And I think that that's true, because we've all encountered people who do not smile, and just, how that affects you. It's just like, golly, what's going on with that person? So don't be that person, be someone who has a smile on their face and is, before you speak, just give a smile. And then when you're talking to people, the next tip, always remember they are primarily interested in themselves. Okay. If you know this, people, their primary interest is themselves. This applies to us too. Then you want to use words like you and your, and avoid words like I, me, and mine, because those are the words that are going to turn people off. You're going to find that if you communicate using those words, you, yours, your, that people are going to respond favorably to you. In fact, they're going to think very highly of you. They're going to have really positive thoughts about you. And this is why this is a great tip to take to whenever you are reaching out to a potential, or a potential has reached out to you. We talk about this a lot. Don't talk, ask questions, turn it back, make it about them, ask questions. What are you looking for? How do you want this to help your life, your health? Use those words, and don't use the I, me's, and mine's. And then he says to really listen to people. It's not about agreeing. You don't have to agree, but you do need to listen to people and seek to really understand them. And he says that people want to be understood at 2 levels, an intellectual level and an emotional level. Okay, so at the intellectual level, people want to know, like, okay, she understands what it is I'm saying. But at the emotional level, this is where people want to make sure that you understand what it is they're feeling. So it's not about necessarily listening or agreeing, but it's about paying attention, respecting this person enough to really, really pay attention. And the most important thing in communication is hearing what isn't said, is what he says, which I really like that. So hearing what isn't being said. So kind of going beyond just the words, making great eye contact, watching the person's body language, asking those follow-up questions. Listening is really an art that you have to develop, and it's a skill that you have to develop. And so paying really, really close attention. One thing he said too is that when you listen, when you don't speak and you listen and you do it well, you allow that other person to hear their favorite speaker. And guess who their favorite speaker is? It's them. And that makes them feel really important. So, you're making them feel valued, and you're making them feel like what they have to say is important, or at least it's important to you. And that goes a far, long, long way with people. So, we've all heard the saying, God gave us one mouth and two ears, so we should listen twice as much as we speak. But he said that he even thinks the ratio should be a little bit higher than that, maybe like a 4-to-1, where we listen 4 times more than we talk. And that if you use that as a guide, you're really headed in the right direction, that 4-to-1 ratio. Okay, so the next tip is to compliment people. People, all of us, we know how good that feels. We need compliments. We want compliments. Compliments really bring out and highlight the best efforts in people. So we all want those compliments, but most of the time we're so self-oriented that we aren't thinking enough about the other person. So always look for an opportunity to compliment the person that you're speaking with or somebody around you. Just always look for a thing to say. Make it genuine, of course. And do this too, as you're reaching out and talking to people about Plexus. I mean, this kind of filters over into that, but paying people a genuine compliment it's huge. And again, that it goes a long way with people too. And then using people's names. This is something that Dale Carnegie and that How to Win Friends and Influence People. That's a really good book to read. But this is a tip that he talks about, is that people love to hear we love to hear our own names. So get in the habit of using people's names, not like to where it's a creepy, where you're using it way too much. But when you use somebody's name, that's actually kind of like a subtle compliment to that person. It's really effective because it tells them that they mean enough to you, that you remember and that you use their name. So make that a habit in your communication. And then agreeing with people. So when you agree with people, you enhance their self-confidence. You make them feel good about themselves. And you can just do this by simply, nodding your head or saying, I agree. But those 2 simple words of I agree really, really resonate with people. So just keep that in mind. And of course, you're not always going to agree. And sometimes you need to speak up. I mean, I'm not talking about like just agree if it's something that you have a really strong conviction about, like agree anyway. But sometimes you do need to speak up. But then he did include, and I thought this was really good, some words from Chuck Swindoll, I don't know if I think it's Chuck Swindoll, but he's a pastor. And he said there are 2 rules in life. Rule number 1, don't sweat the small stuff. And rule number 2, everything is small stuff. So almost all of the disagreements, we have a lot of really petty disagreements that happen in our life. And almost all of them can be avoided. And, in the grand scheme of things, most of those things don't matter. I'm not talking about the biggie big stuff, but so just be agreeable. Don't go looking for a fight and just being disagreeable, just to speak your mind and just for the sake of being disagreeable. And then, okay, the last one, speaking to the heart. So when you're communicating with other people, you essentially have a couple of choices. You can speak to their head or you can speak to their heart. So it's kind of like that intellectual and emotional level that we talked about earlier. When you connect to people logically, you're connecting to their head. But when you connect emotionally, that's when you start speaking to their heart. And this is really, really huge in life, but also in Plexus. He says that if you really want to get successful and rich, he says, move people into action. You must learn to connect at that heart level. And we've talked about this before, just with how you do that. One of the really good ways to speak to the heart is to share stories. And I think the most powerful story when it comes to Plexus is your own. Even if you don't have some amazing, what you feel like is an amazing weight loss, health turnaround story, your story is the most powerful story that you can share. That is the story that people in your network, your group of friends, the people that know you and trust you, want to hear. So you've got to get good at sharing your story, and sharing different parts of your story and doing it face to face, speaking it, doing it on Facebook, sharing those stories. Of course, you can always share stories of your, sidelines and uplines. But sharing stories really, really connect people to you on that heart level. And then another way to speak to someone's heart is to show emotion, while you're communicating, to be excited. And we talk about that a lot, being enthusiastic. And when you're speaking, this also goes back to the belief. If you believe in what you're saying, really, really believe it, it's hard not to be enthusiastic and excited. So if you're not excited, they will not be excited either. So if you're not excited about sharing these products or your story, you're not going to light any kind of excitement inside of them. So tune into your own emotion whenever you communicate with others. Okay, so that wrapped it. That's what he shared as far as words go and communicating and becoming a really good communicator. Our next couple slides are over the last section, which is about dreams. This was one of my favorite chapters so far. And I love this quote. The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. So belief and dreams do go hand in hand. One thing, well, let me share this story first, and then because I'm getting ahead of myself. So the story of two boys in the woods. Two best friends, both 9-year-olds, were playing in the woods. It was winter and snow covered the ground. They came to a small pond surrounded by trees and frozen over by the cold. Not thinking, the boys wandered into the ice as they played. All of a sudden, one of the boys fell through the ice and plunged into the freezing water. His friend ran over to the bank in desperation, looking for help. He couldn't find anything, so he climbed the nearest tree and reached for the longest branch. Grabbing the branch, the little boy ripped the branch from the trunk and dragged it across the ice. With all of his strength, he extended the branch to his friend and pulled him to safety. He saved his friend's life. When the locals heard of the 9-year-old hero and how this little boy ripped a huge branch from the trunk of a tree, they could not believe it. This is simply not possible, the townspeople claimed. There's no way a little boy could have done such a thing. Overhearing the conversation, a wise old man spoke up. I know how he was able to do it. How, the townspeople wanted to know. Calmly, the old man said, he could do it because no one was around to tell him that he couldn't. And I just love that. I love that story because it does, and that's the next bullet point here, where we are created for success. But you guys, we live in a world that conditions us to settle. It conditions us for failure. It conditions us to be ordinary. Sometimes I think even when we venture out, I don't know, I guess I know I have, but some of you may have experienced people who really, really spoke out about the doubts that they had of you being successful with Plexus when they knew that you were doing it. And it's almost as though, there are those people, those dream stealers that like suck the joy out of things, and they really find enjoyment in, or they're content in their failure. And so that whole misery loves company thing, they want you to also fail, because if you somehow succeed, it challenges their belief that they can't do it. It makes them kind of reevaluate what beliefs they're setting up for themselves. Make sure I'm still on. Did I freeze a little? Hey there. Sorry. I was just about to text you, Pam. Okay. Let me hide this. Okay. So what I was saying is that's the reason I love that story so much is I'm probably on mute. Hold on. Okay, good. I'll make sure I'm not. It really does just show the idea that we are created for success, but we can become conditioned for failure, and that there's always going to be those people, honestly, as bad as it is, that want to see you fail. Again, that whole misery loves company. So, they want to, seeing you succeed or go after your dream, it threatens them because it makes them kind of have to come to grips with why are they not going after their own dreams. So just know that, there's always going to be those naysayers. But the really important thing for you to do, and this is what the main thing he talked about in this chapter, is to really, really ask yourself, what is it that you want, like out of life? What is it that you dream of? You hear it said a lot, if you knew you couldn't fail, what is the one thing that you would do? But I think an even better way to say it, I've heard it asked a different way. I've heard people say, even if you knew you would fail a few times going after this dream, what dream is so powerful that you would do it anyway? Because we don't need to be afraid of failure. And we've talked about that too. failing is not the enemy. Failing is a good thing. That's how we learn. That's how we know we're on the right track. So even if you knew you were going to fail on the journey, you were going to have some failures along the way, what dream is so powerful for you that you would do it anyway? He talks about how many of us at one time, like when we were little, it was really easy for us to dream. What do you want to be when you get older? And, it's like the sky's the limit when you used to answer that question. And then somewhere along the way, we just kind of give up on our dreams. And he talks about how he's gone all over the place speaking. And when he asks, no matter where he is, if he asks someone to tell them about their dreams, he's amazed at how many people cannot articulate their dreams. Like they're just not in touch with their dreams. And what that essentially means, he says, is that they've settled. They've let the world kind of beat them down and tell them that whatever their dream was, they're not being realistic. It's never going to happen, whatever. And so they give up on their dreams because they just became conditioned to think that their dreams, were not going to come true. So, excuse me, he talks about how we don't go on a trip without a destination and how we don't cook a meal without a recipe. So we would never do that. I mean, we would never say, oh, I'm just going to get in the car. I'm going on a trip. Where are you going? I have no idea. I'm just going to start driving. Like we wouldn't do that. We wouldn't cook a meal, that's something we've never cooked before, without using a recipe. So most people, though, end up living their lives without a clue as to where they want to end up. And that's the same exact thing as taking a trip without a destination and making a new meal without a recipe. So if you don't have a plan, how can you even have a chance at being successful? I mean, you haven't really defined what that is for you, what that success is going to look like for you. So you have to have a plan. And the plan starts, honestly, with you deciding what it is that you want to achieve with your life, and then deciding how it is that you're going to get there. So wherever you are, now is a great time to stop and really analyze that and get a really clear vision of what it is that you want. Where is it that you want to go? Start to make that roadmap and figure out your destination. He talks about how dreams give us hope, and they give us vision, and they nourish our soul. They give us the possibility that when reality gives us problems, we know that we can keep going because we start to see obstacles as opportunities. And dreams are what is going to keep you guys going whenever the time gets tough in your business. And you're going to have tough times. If you haven't had it already, you're going to have down times, and it's your dream, your why. I mean, that's why we talk so much about your why, that's going to keep you going with that. So the other thing I want to say too is one of the reasons it's so important that you really get in touch with your dream and your dreams is when you start leading your team, which everybody that's on this call, you are a team leader. If you have at least one customer or one person signed up under you, you are now a leader. One of your jobs as a leader is to cast vision for your team. It's to help you, the people that have joined you, cast their own dreams and cast their own vision. You can't cast vision for anybody else if you haven't casted vision for yourself first. So you have to know your dreams so that you can help others start to dream for themselves. So that's one reason why it's so crucial, not just on a personal level, but then think about all the people that you're going to be able to help do this exact same thing. Okay, so he shared this little quick story. It's not really a story, but this whales and sardines. And he said that like a few years ago, I guess there were hundreds and hundreds of whales that died. And what ended up happening is these whales were chasing sardines to eat. And the whales chased these sardines, and they became trapped in a shallow bay. And basically they died. I mean, they couldn't get back into the deep water. And so they were essentially lured to their death by tiny, tiny fish. And he kind of compared this to the fact that many of us live a dead life because we chase really, really small dreams, or because we don't chase any dreams at all. So, don't be the whales that are chasing the sardines. Dream big, and then find a way to dream even bigger. So keep your mind, and this is kind of where he gets a little bit practical, but keeping your mind aware of your dreams daily. So this is really, really important, is to find a way to think on your dreams, say your dreams out loud. One of the suggestions he gave was to write out your dreams. And I know that we've talked about that a lot in our team, making dream boards where you can post together, make a collage picture, a collage wall of, different pictures that depict your dream, where you want to live, your house, you're paid out of debt, whatever your dreams are. And then also to visualize your dream. And this goes beyond just seeing it on paper, but like closing your eyes and visualizing. So if let's just say your dream is to be on the trip to Hawaii, the Jewel Extravaganza, visualizing yourself there, sitting on the beach, feeling the sand on your feet, feeling the waves hit your legs, feeling the sun on your body, visualizing it and having kind of like that visualizing exercise and doing that repeatedly. He shared this study that was done back in the 50s, which I think is really cool. And it shows the power of mental visualization. So in this experiment, basically, they brought 20 people in this room, and they were all inexperienced subjects. And they asked these 20 people to throw darts at a dartboard for 1 hour. So inexperienced, like they were not like professional dart throwers. So then they did that for an hour, and then they recorded their scores. And then the next phase was they split this group of 20 people into 2 separate groups of 10. Okay. The first group of 10 stayed in the room, and they were told, okay, practice your dart throwing for 1 hour. Your goal is to try to improve your dart throwing, your accuracy as much as possible. So that was the first group of 10. They actually got physical practice. The second group of 10, they took them into a dark room. They set them down in chairs. And the doctor that was like conducting this study, he asked the group, this group of 10, to close their eyes and to visualize themselves throwing the darts, and to practice that over and over and over in their mind for 1 hour. Visualize yourself throwing the dart and hitting the target. And that's what he said. See yourself throwing the dart. See yourself hitting the bullseye. So both groups did what they were told for an hour. 10 practiced in real life. 10 practiced only in their mind. And then he brought them all back to test his theory. And then both groups, they were all back in the same room, and they were told to throw the darts at the board so they could see where their improvement was. So here's what's crazy, I think. The first group who had the actual, real life practice, they improved their accuracy by 24%. The second group who only practiced in their mind improved their accuracy by 23%. So what they concluded was 1 hour of mental practice was nearly as efficient as 1 hour of physical practice. And I think that is astonishing. I mean, I was like blown away when I read that. I just think that's so cool. So the power of mental visualization, it's amazing. I mean, and essentially what you're doing is you're making an unfamiliar situation or task become familiar. And so this is why we talk a lot, like if you're really freaked out about sharing cold messaging someone, or talking on the phone and sharing your Plexus story, or talking to a potential on the phone about the products, visualize yourself doing it, practice it out loud, but practice it in your mind. See yourself on the phone, smiling, laughing, having fun, how good that feels to be helping someone, visualize that and make that unfamiliar task become very, very familiar to you. But then do this with your dreams as well. So just to kind of close this was one of the, this exercise at the end, he actually has this in his Millionaire by Halftime book, but I thought it was really applicable here, is to get a blank sheet of paper, and you don't have to do this right now, but get a blank piece of paper, and at the top, write out the words, "My life plan." And this is how you're going to start getting in touch with your dreams and visualizing your dreams and really pinpointing that destination that you want for your life. And you're going to write down what you want your life and your future to be like. And you are going to do not limit this. You're going to let the possibilities kind of run wild and be as descriptive as you possibly can. Okay. And here's the areas that you're going to do this in. You're going to write your dreams that you want for your life in the area of money, in the area of relationships, in the area of health, and in the area of personal and spiritual growth. So this is really good. And like I said, get really detailed. You could have, maybe 3 or 4, I don't know, bullet points on each one of them, but really start to think about all those areas of your life and what it is that you want to happen. What are those dreams that you have? Because honestly, and I do think that this is true, that people who are really successful in life, but in network marketing, because that's what we're talking about, but people who are really successful in network marketing and in Plexus, they have all done this. They have a clear idea, a clear picture of what they want, what it would be like to feel and see and have those dreams that they have come true. So this is a great exercise, I think, to do, because until we can see it, we can't go there. It's that whole idea of like, when you go somewhere, you take 2 trips. The first one is in your mind, and then the second one is the actual physical trip. So you have to go there first in your mind and see it happening before you can actually physically make it happen. Okay, well, so next week we are going to cover, he's going to talk to us a little bit about goal setting and how to set goals that are really in line with your dreams. So if you plan to join us next week, then do this little exercise and we'll kind of take it a step further with his goals. But I'm going to stop the recording. So thanks all of you guys for joining our call tonight, and we'll see y'all next week.